Since a startling leak from inside Ripple headquarters appeared, the cryptocurrency industry is, on fire. A flurry of rumors has been sparked by a secret internal communication that was purportedly shared among Ripple's board members and senior engineers. The proposal outlined in the document is so radical and audacious that it has the potential to drastically alter the XRP ecosystem in a single day. Next week, a single coordinated transaction is scheduled to burn 40 billion XRP from escrow. This will be one of the most significant and revolutionary supply events in the history of digital assets, if it is accurate. The XRP community has been debating Ripple's enormous escrow holdings for years. 1 billion XRP is unlocked from escrow each month and either partially sold or returned, which puts consistent supply pressure on the token. However, this quantum escrow strategy makes all the difference. The leaked memo claims that a new escrow consolidation event has been approved by Ripple management, including CEO Brad Garlinghouse and Chief Technology Officer David Schwartz. The internal documents state that the goal is to burn 40 billion XRP in order to permanently eradicate a significant amount of Ripple's controlled supply. According to reports, the deal, known as Project Quantum, employs an escrow method based on smart contracts that guarantees verifiable proof of burn through on-chain consensus. To put it simply, Ripple would purposefully destroy these coins, taking them out of circulation permanently. Think about the numbers to get a sense of the scale of this. Since Ripple currently has around half of the 100 billion XRP tokens in escrow accounts, the overall supply would instantly decrease by 40% if 40 billion XRP were burned. This would be the same as Apple declaring that it will repurchase over half of its outstanding stock, which would be so deflationary that the market would have to adjust to much higher prices. Experts are referring to it as the decade's biggest supply shock. However, why is Ripple doing this now? There are hints in the leaked memo. In fact, it makes reference to recent internal forecasts associated with impending institutional acceptance benchmarks. According to people with knowledge of the paper, Ripple anticipates an event that will ignite global liquidity in the upcoming quarter. This event will be fueled by collaborations with significant financial institutions and central banks in Asia and the Middle East. In this case, the burn would accomplish two goals. First, to reduce excess supply in order to stabilize long-term value. And second, to let governments and authorities know that XRP is a restricted, limited, and deflationary asset that can be used in large-scale financial infrastructure. Let's examine the mechanical operation of this. Smart contract-based locks and escrowed funds are integrated into the XRP ledger. To make those tokens permanently unusable, Ripple's programmers would send 40 billion XRP to a black hole address, an account from which no private key exists, through a single on-ledger transaction that would be confirmed by the network's consensus mechanism. Anyone in the world could confirm the burn thanks to the XRP ledger's transparency. It is mathematically irreversible and not symbolic. Once completed, those tokens are lost permanently. There would be a significant impact on the price of XRP. The circulating and liquid supply would drastically decrease if 40 billion tokens were eliminated. According to fundamental supply and demand economics, prices must rise to achieve a new equilibrium when available supply declines and demand stays the same, or worse, increases. This is supported by historical crypto case studies. Prices increased after Binance burned BNB. There was upward pressure when Ethereum launched EIP 15/9 due to a drop in supply. However, in the case of XRP, we are discussing a burn of an unprecedented size. Analysts have been using simulations based on total market capitalization and anticipated post-burn liquidity injections to estimate possible price outcomes. With a market capitalization in the tens of billions, XRP is currently trading in the sub-dollar level. If 40% of the supply is taken away by Ripple and the market capitalization stays the same, the price of XRP will naturally rise in proportion, maybe doubling or even quadrupling overnight. However, if demand spikes, as many anticipate, we may be looking at figures that currently appear unattainable with renewed institutional acceptance. The math is here. Assume that the post-burn circulating quantity of XRP settles at about 55 billion tokens. A price of about $23 per XRP would result if its total market capitalization reached a level similar to that of Bitcoin, which is currently valued at about $1.3 trillion. The figures will soar if cross-border settlements and global banking integration via RippleNet reach even a small portion of SWIFT's $150 trillion yearly flow. An XP market value of around $7 trillion, which would indicate a token price of $125, might be justified by a valuation equivalent to 5% of that market. However, the leaked memo claims that Ripple's internal predictions are even more ambitious. A quantum pricing path model, which predicts the adoption of exponential liquidity after the burn event initiates what they refer to as a trust compression cycle, is purportedly included in the document. According to this model, when financial institutions embrace XRP in large quantities for on-demand liquidity settlements, tokenized asset exchanges, and CBDC interoperability, its value will rise to $500 to $1,000 per token. The logic is straightforward. The system adjusts by increasing the value of each remaining XRP as supply falls and liquidity velocity rises. They say that scarcity turns into security. If you've followed Ripple's trend over the past few years, you'll know that this matches their long-term strategy because they've already hinted at supply interventions. Critics will label this fantasy, and skeptics will say it's simply another rumor meant to inflate the market. In a previous public statement, Brad Garlinghouse stated that if it helped the ecosystem, Ripple may cut back on its XRP holdings. The pieces begin to fit together when you combine it with recent modifications to the blockchain ledger that allude to new escrow arrangements. Let's talk about the macroeconomic ramifications now. The cryptocurrency market would be rocked by a 40 billion XRP burn. In terms of scarcity compared to circulating demand, it would immediately place XRP among the most valuable digital assets in the world, exceeding Ethereum. Overnight, the focus would change from centralized corporate tokens to institutional-grade settlement assets that are deflationary. Institutional investors who have long been wary of Ripple's supply control would finally witness the pinnacle of decentralization when Ripple willingly relinquishes its network dominance. This would be a psychological watershed that might, change the mood in both professional and retail markets. Additionally, the burn might be a prelude to the IPO of Ripple, which is a much greater event. It makes perfect sense to reduce escrow liabilities and clean up the balance sheet if the company plans to go public in 2026. In addition to removing any impression of artificial inflation, burning such tokens shows Ripple's financial maturity and, to be honest, increases investor confidence over the long run. The regulatory angle is another. Although Ripple has mostly moved past the SEC litigation, the issue of XRP's ownership has always been present. That is directly addressed by a huge fire event. Ripple essentially decentralizes ownership after it eliminates a sizable portion of its assets, which is consistent with the court's ruling that XRP is not a security. This will change XRP from a corporately controlled token to an open-source, impartial financial tool in the perspective of regulators. Anticipate volatility unlike anything XRP has ever experienced in the days preceding the burn. Exchanges will see record volume, whales will position, and speculation around the precise transaction block number will spread. Blockchain explorers will verify the single irrevocable transaction when it occurs. Many thanks for listening. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Additionally, to be the first to know when I post new stuff, make sure you enable the alerts. I can't wait to see you again in the next video. Be careful.